Britain at a crossroads, how Brexit will end. There are at least 3 realistic scenarios. On Monday, October 21, it was expected that the British Parliament could finally hold the final vote on the deal with the EU, which Boris Johnson concluded last week. The situation is even more complicated because parliamentarians do not know what to expect in case of rejection of the proposed agreement. What then awaits Britain? Hard Brexit at the end of this month. Another postponement of exit from the European Union. Repeated referendum. None of these options seem unrealistic. Britain froze awaiting a decision. This phrase is so beaten that even starting with it, a description of the situation that has now developed on Foggy Albion is a little awkward. Britain has been living in constant time trouble for 2 years now, when the inevitable exit from the EU is forever approaching, and then the country receives a respite from the leaders of Europe and it all starts again. Now the moment of maximum tension has come. For the first time in all time, the Prime Minister so wants to leave the European Union at all costs, and for the first time there are no guarantees that rejecting his plan will not lead to a complete collapse and a hard Brexit. In the meantime, Johnson is preparing for a decisive battle for leaving the EU and his premiership. Consider what options can become a reality in the near future. Acceptance of the Johnson deal. The simplest and most understandable scenario, the British Parliament this week approves the deal that Prime Minister Johnson made and leaves the pan-European space in accordance with it. This is the most common scenario that will allow the United Kingdom to avoid big shocks. At the same time, the situation is too confused to say for sure whether parliamentarians will accept it. In the out there are groups that do not want to see Brexit in any form. There are entire regions that are threatening to leave the United Kingdom if Brexit does happen. Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets of British cities who oppose the United Kingdom leaving the EU. There are significant factions in Parliament that oppose Johnson's deal, and even the Ulster Unionists, conservative allies in the government coalition, have refused to support this project because they feel betrayed on the Irish border. That is why a smooth exit with the least losses seems not such an obvious prospect. Operation Oatmeal. But what if parliamentarians still reject Johnson's deal? Then the word is already in the EU. It will be he who will have to decide whether to give Britain another postponement, or to provoke a hard break in relations. The English publication The Times, citing its sources, said that the EU was ready to give Britain time until at least February, to still find an acceptable solution. It is difficult to say how much this statement can be taken for real information, because it may well be an act of influence on parliamentarians. It is much easier to vote against Johnson's project, realizing that they will give you more time, and not be thrown out of the EU under harsh conditions. Therefore, in any case, Britain is preparing for the worst. The Out government has already launched Operation Oatmeal, which was developed in the event of a tough Brexit scenario. This plan governs the management of emergencies that will occur if Britain leaves the EU without a deal. So, it is expected to rise in price of a number of goods, a shortage of medicines and multi-kilometer traffic jams in the tunnel under the English Channel. The official announcement of the start of such an operation before the vote is also more an attempt to put pressure on the deputies than a real start of activity. However, if the EU does not want to continue the epic with Britain, which for the second time enters into an agreement, and then demands to change it, then Operation Oatmeal can quickly move from plans to real life. The EU vote. At the same time, the European Union itself is unlikely to bring much benefit to a sharp break in relations with one of its richest and most influential members. Therefore, the EU can indeed give another respite to the United Kingdom. But this will not lead to Johnson's new negotiations with EU leaders, but to a new vote. The overwhelming majority of Brexit's opponents do not want a postponement. They want to abolish the very process of Britain's exit from the EU. In such a situation, a second referendum may come to their aid, where the positions of supporters of preserving the United Kingdom within the EU will be strong, especially against the background of negotiations stumbling over 2 years ago. This idea is also supported in Parliament. Some opposition parties advocate for it, and it is precisely it that is supported by the main oppositionist Jeremy Corbyn. However, there is another option, early parliamentary elections, which de facto will become a second referendum on the United Kingdom's exit from the EU, At the moment, this option seems most realistic if Parliament does not approve Johnson's deal. Not so long ago, the British Prime Minister himself tried to push the idea of holding an early vote, but then he was not supported by the Labour Party, which was frightened by low ratings. Now the leader of the Trudeauvics, Jeremy Corbyn, has publicly stated that his party is ready for new elections. Most likely, they should be expected if Parliament rejects Johnson's deal. This is the only way to cut the Gordian knot that Brexit as question has already managed to wrap 3 times.